In this recording, I'm going to show you how to record your own macros and how to save them and then use them. So I've created a blank document. I'm just going to save that real quick into my recording support files. There they are. And I'll call this macros. Oh, something went a little crazy there with my typing. So let's do a save as and see if it works any better. Okay, macro sample, that's better. When you record macros, you can save them in a number of different places. The most common places, as you saw in the first recording, is to store them in the normal template. If you store your macros in the normal template, then that macro is available to every document that you create on that computer. If you then copy the normal template to a different computer, the macros go with it. So that's very convenient. Some macros, however, don't need to be used in all kinds of documents. They only need to be used in a certain kind of document. So those can be stored in the document themselves, or the macros can be stored in a separate template other than normal. And you can use any of those techniques to store your documents. And when you're doing the assignments for my homework, they're not coming out of the book. They're ones I dreamed up. Just follow the instructions on where to store them. In my case, I'm going to store them in a document just for convenience sake. That way I can save them and bring them back if I need to. First thing you'll need to do macros is the developer toolbar. Now you don't really need it, but it really comes in handy. I've had it on for the last three units here, but I turned it off again just as a reminder how to turn it on. I'm going to right click any toolbar and say I'm going to want to customize the ribbon and turn on the developer toolbar. Once you've got that on, I recommend you leave it on. The developer, in addition to having all these components that we could add, also has buttons for macros. This button allows you to record a macro. There is a mirrored button for that down here on your status bar. This button does exactly the same thing. If you don't see that button, remember you can right click your status bar and turn on the macro recording option and include that on your status bar. I use that one a lot because it's convenient. I don't have to switch to the macro or the developer bar to get to record macro, but you can use either one of them. Okay. This is a macro manager button that allows you to get into your macro list and edit them, delete them, see which ones are there if you need to. In the first recording, I needed to use that to execute my determined score macro because the shortcut key that I assigned to it was used by something else. All right, so let's record a macro. And before I do anything else, I want to show you some of the limits of macros. So I'm going to record a macro. Macro 2 is a decent enough name because this is junk anyways. The first thing you got to be careful of is you store it in the right place. The default location is normal, and I don't want these little test macros screwing up normal. Since it's a test macro, I like to give it the name test. When I see that, I recognize it and know that I can probably get rid of it. These buttons are used to designate where you store your macro. If you don't click any of them, the macro is stored in your document, but there's no buttons, there's no shortcut keys. You have to go to the macro utility button here to go execute that macro. I'll show you how that works with this one. I will also show you an example for keyboards when we're done. I'm not going to show you an example for buttons, but you can assign a macro to a command button and stick it in the ribbon or stick it on your quick access bar. I don't usually mess with the description, but you can add it. And click on OK. It's a couple of things you can't do when you're recording macros. Now I can, of course, type some text. I don't know if I can type or not. Okay, now what I can't do with my mouse is move my cursor. Once you're recording, the mouse cannot be used to record or to move the cursor. So you have to become very keyboard adept. You have to know that the home key takes you to the beginning, the end key takes you to the end. Control arrows jump you a word at a time, except in a Mac, right? And move you back and forth. Right? You have to know those kind of things, and you have to be very careful and actually pretty smart. So what I'm going to do is find on the web a place that tells me about keyboard shortcuts because they come in very handy. So I'm launching Firefox. We'll give that a second to launch and we'll come back. Okay, so the mouse, when we're recording a macro, does not work inside your text. I can't make my cursor jump. So what I'm going to do is go to my Firefox here. I'm going to do a little search in Google for word shortcut keys. If you do that search, you'll get all kinds of support, including some support from Microsoft Office. You can click on these, and then there's a bunch of links that you can touch on to demonstrate. And here's some shortcut keys that are printed. And you can scroll through these. Don't want to take a survey, and try to find the one that you want. And if this link doesn't help you very much, then you can try a different one. I seem to remember the second one worked pretty well, and they have a bunch of nice little links that I can touch on. So if I want to learn, for instance, how to move around in a table, okay, move through your document, move around in a table. Hint, hint, question number 3, extra credit on my homework assignments. This has got the clues in it for all the different keys that you need to move around in a table, because you can't use your mouse to click around inside a table and move. So when you're recording, you have to make sure that you know how to navigate your document. So what I recommend you do, and I didn't do it here, what I recommend you do is first practice your macro without the recording on, so that you make sure, and don't use the mouse any more than you can. You can use the mouse in recording to control the scroll bar if there is one. You can use it to control your toolbar if you need to. So I can go to the Home tab and boldface and italicize and do all those kinds of things. But you cannot use the mouse to move your cursor around. Another thing that doesn't happen when you're recording is if I insert some of these shapes. For instance, I used to have a recording that created a 32-point star and then customized it. Okay. Here I am with my mouse again. Well, as it turns out, I can drag my 32-point star, and I could change its fill color to yellow, but now I'm going to stop my recording and go look at my macro. Right? Because what I discovered, and this is new to me, what I discovered is that in the latest versions of Word, and I don't know if it was in 2010 or not, but in 2013, I cannot insert these kinds of shapes. I'm going to go to my developer toolbar. I'm going to go to the macros list for this document. And there's my test macro, and I want to edit it. I want to see what's inside there. Not much. Right? Not much was done at all. The text isn't in here. I couldn't move my cursor. The only thing it did was paste some text in from the clipboard, and that's because I've paused the recording and started it up again. But there's nothing in here. Look how small that program is. There's nothing in here that says insert a 32-point star, make its background color yellow. I was very surprised by that. I believe the reason that it doesn't happen anymore is this: if I really like it, makes a great piece, it makes a great quick part. I can save it as a quick part and insert it, and that's more efficient and probably quicker than trying to save it as a macro. So when you're recording macros, remember you can't move the cursor with your mouse, and you can't insert pictures or art or any of those kind of things as part of your macro. It's somewhat limiting, but there's still thousands of things to do with macros. Okay, I'm going to select everything here and start over again. What I want to do as a demonstration is add a what I call a happy face bullet. Okay. When you go to insert, in the Home tab, you want to make a bullet. There's no happy face here. That's one of my favorite bullets, is a happy face. Well, if I define a new bullet, right, and what I'm doing now is practicing. How do I define a new happy face bullet? Go to Symbol. And it's not in the symbol font. The happy face is hiding in the Wingdings font. I've practiced this before, that's how I know. Otherwise I have to go find it. Here's the Wingdings font, slide all the way up, and there's my happy face, and I can use that now as a bullet. Click on OK. Right, and now that sentence has got the happy face on it. Right, but it looks like it's using a 1/4-inch indent, and that's not bad, but maybe I want to tweak that. So I'm going to double click these and open this up, and that's not the one I want. That's margins. So I must have missed. So I'm just going to go to the paragraph formatting here, and instead of a 1/4, I want 3/10 and 3/10. Click on OK, that spreads them out a little bit more, and that might be better. Or you might want to squish them, but I'm just creating a macro. Let's say that my happy face bullet, that's the way I like it. Right, so now I've practiced it. And what I don't want is the happy face bullet in my document when I'm recording the macro. Right? So what I'm going to do is undo all those steps. Okay. Now, unfortunately, because I've inserted a happy face, it's already in the list. So when I go back to the bullets, the happy face is already there. And I could pull it from here. But what I want to do is write a macro that I could maybe take to a school, sit down at a computer, and if they don't have my happy face bullet, instead of me having to go find it, remember what font it's in, change the indentation, I simply run my macro and it goes and finds the happy face and does all the indentation. So even though it's here, I'm going to ignore it. You can remove some of these, like that one I can remove. All right, but it's still going to be part of my document. It's still a recently used bullet, and so it's hard. Once you got them, they're hard to get rid of. So now that I've practiced, I want to do my recording. And by the way, I don't want this text as part of my recording. It's there to help me find out and make sure that bullets, happy face bullets, work. But the recording itself doesn't insert the text. It just changes existing text into happy faces. So I'm going to highlight both of these this time just to make sure it works for two. And then I'm going to start my recording. Remember, you can do it here or you can do it from the developer tab. I'm going to do the developer tab just in case. I don't think I've done that one yet. I'm going to start my recording. I'm going to do the same thing I just practiced. I'm going to take this text. I'm going to call this my test macro. I'm going to overwrite the one I had before. And this one I'm going to assign to the keyboard. Do you want to replace the existing macro? First of all, I canceled that. So I'm going to go back and do my macro again because I don't think I changed it. So I must have a test macro less stuck in my normal. I forgot to change that. So remember to always change the document where you want to store it unless you want it to go into normal. Then I'm going to assign it to a keyboard. And the way you do that is you just make your cursors in here and then you press the key that you want to use for this macro. And this is a happy face, and Control H is used for fonts or search and replace or something like that. I forget what it is. You can try it. Control H is used for edit replace. So I don't want to get rid of that shortcut key because I know that one. And I don't want to override it. So I'm going to use a different one. So I'm going to try Alt Control H. Now it's added two keys, so Alt Control H. And that one's used for highlighting. I don't use that shortcut key, so I'm going to use it now for my happy face bullets. Click on close. Okay, and now I'm recording. I'm recording the macro, and the time it takes doesn't matter. It's just recording your steps. It's not recording my mouse movements. It's recording the commands that you issue. So I'm going to the Home tab, and I'm going to go to the bullets, and I'm going to pretend like my happy face bullet is not there, and I'm going to go define a new one. I'm going to use the symbol. Okay, and it's already in the Wingdings font. That's okay. If it weren't, then I would have to navigate to there. The fact that it's already there just makes this macro a little simpler. There's my happy face. I want to use that. Okay. Now I want to change the formatting of the paragraph as part of my macro to make sure that it's a tenth and a 3/10 indent, and that'll make it a little bit bigger. And there's my happy face. That's it. So now I can stop my recording. Here's a stop button. If I was still on the developer, there's a stop button there too. But because I've changed tabs, this one's more convenient. Stop. And now I once again have to pretend. So now I want to test this. So I'm going to take all the text out of here. Delete it. And save this as my macro sample. There's no text in this document. Okay? And now I'm getting a warning saying you can't save macros in regular Word documents. So no, I can't do this. I have to do a save as. Okay? And so it's doing a save as. It's still in my recording support file. So now I want to call this macro, but I want to change the document type to a document enabled macro. Or a macro enabled, document. There's also a macro-enabled template. So if you have templates with macros stored within them, you must use this format. I'm going to use a macro-enabled document, and I'm going to leave the name the same and save it. And now my document, macro-enabled document, DOCM, is a blank document with the macros stored inside it in my recording support files. I hope that's where it went. And macro sample, looks like it went to the recording support file somewhere else. I have two of them, so let's see if it went to the other one. MSTC Word Intermediate, recording support files. Nope, not in there either. So where did it go? Okay, I couldn't find it, so I went looking in Word. I said, show me the recent documents, and here it is. And if I click on that, or right-click it, or just touch it, it'll tell me where that is. And I have no idea where this D locks. It's kind of I think it's my Outlook or my OneDrive Live account, but I still couldn't find it there. But it found it, so I'm going to open it from there and do a save as one more time. It's a blank document. And notice I'm getting a warning. When you open a document with macros in it, you get a warning, and if you want to use the macros, you have to enable content. Now, some users may not know that. In my notes, I talk about macro security. If you go to the Developer tab, here's the macro security. And by default, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft Word comes out of the box saying disable all the macros, but let the user know there's macros in this document. I find that a bit tedious. The main reason that they have this is once upon a time, and this is many years ago, the hackers used to create macro viruses. They'd write code, because these are really little computer programs. They'd write code with viruses embedded inside the Word macros. Today, Word is not the big target. Macros are not the big target for hackers. They don't get a whole lot of prestige by doing macro viruses. Plus, your AVG, Norton antivirus, all those check for macro viruses. So I don't think this is really necessary anymore, but that's my opinion. This isn't bad. You have to click enable and you're done. But I usually say enable all the macros. It says it's dangerous. Well, live dangerously. For this one, because it wasn't set before, I have to set it. Okay. So now here's my DOCM, and I'm going to do a quick save as so that it's in a place where I can find it. I'm going to go to my desktop, recording support files, and put it in there so I can find it later if I need it. Okay, so here's my document. And so I can type some text. And let's say I want to make that a happy bullet. Should be able to just click in it anywhere. Okay, and then run my macro. I assign my macro to Alt-Control-H. So Alt-Control-H. H. That didn't seem to work. Let's see if the macro is actually stored in here. There's my test macro. I should have called it happy bullet. That would have been smarter. And let's run it. Okay, that works, but my shortcut key I must have missed somehow, or it must not have transferred to the macro enabled document. But there's my happy bullet, and it seems to be indented 3/10 and another 3/10. Press enter, and I get more bullets, and I can just keep typing them. Now maybe a boss looks at this and says, you know what, they're still too close together. Well, I can then undo all this. I can take all that text out, and my happy bullet is now available to me, but I'm still not going to use it. I'm going to go into my macros, and I want to show you that you can edit macros. Holy cow, what does all that stuff mean? Well, kind of hard to tell. Some of it I don't even know. This is the program that's being done, programming that's being done by the recording. Again, you could type all this manually, but you have to have a pretty good solid macro programming background. But what I want to do instead is I'm going to move my left indent all the way to 1 inch and first line indent to -1/2 inch. So that'll give me 1/2 inches between my bullets, and I've now modified my macro. So you don't have to understand what all these things mean, but occasionally you can browse through and find certain things that allow you to tweak them instead of starting over again. Another option is completely delete the macro or replace it and start over again. So I'm going to save that, Close this window. This is the Visual Basic macro editing window. Shouldn't take that long. Okay, I don't know why that took so long, but once it's done, you can close the Visual Basic window because you've modified, I have modified my macro. There's the -1/2 and there's the 1. Right, close it. And now if I run the macro again, right, I'm going to try the Alt-Control-H again. And that did the highlighting. So somehow that shortcut key didn't work. Press Escape to get rid of the highlighting. I'm going to have to run my macro manually. Okay, so there's test, run it. You can also double click it. And notice now my happy face is at 1/2 and my hanging indent is at 1 inch. So if I do a Shift Enter, and by the way, that's a way to start a new line without a new bullet. Shift Enter. It's called a line break instead of a paragraph. They'll line up on the 1 inch. Okay. Now the next thing I want to show you is how to create a macro that runs automatically. And I would like to put that keyboard back on there, or the keyboard shortcut. So let me pause here for a second, figure that out, and then show you how to do it. Okay, it's a little tricky. I want to change add my keyboard shortcut back to my happy face. So once again, I'm going to get rid of all my text here. Pressing Control A and deleting everything. Now, to change a shortcut key, it's kind of tricky. You have to go to actually customize the ribbon. So I'm going to customize the ribbon, then hiding down here at the bottom is keyboard shortcuts, and I can customize them. I want to create a shortcut for my macros, and there's a category for macros here. And there's all the macros. They're in the wrong place, but if I look around here, hopefully I can find the right one. There's test with a capital T, and I hope that's, oops, I'm in the wrong one. So I'm going to modify my document macros, and it's still showing me a bunch. I'm going to go back to test here. Now test is gone. How'd that happen? Well, that's how I change it. Let me go back to normal. Shouldn't have test in unless I changed it and saved it in the wrong spot. Might be a different test as well. Okay, and then here's my new shortcut key, Alt-Control-H. That's currently assigned to highlight. And I don't think that's what I want to do. I'm going to leave it back to normal and go back to test. That's a little weird that it's not showing me the test. Close. Let's see if that helps. Okay, some text. And then Alt-Control-H. Still didn't do it. I think what's happening is I'm linking in my shortcut keys here are linking into normal, but my macro is actually stored inside my document, and the two are not playing well together, and there's two with the same name, test, test, so it's confusing things. So let's try another little thing here. This wasn't part of my plan, but I'm troubleshooting here. I'm going to rename, if I can, this macro. And the way you rename it, you can go to the organizer, that might help, but I'm going to go into edit. And at the very beginning of this code, it says subtest. That's the macro name. So I'm going to call this Happy Bullet. I could change it here too. This is the Happy Bullet macro. And once again, save and close all this stuff. And now let's see if I can get the shortcut key on the Happy Bullet. I think my problem was I had two macros with the same name. Not where I need to be. Right click, customize the ribbon. And I want to change the shortcut keys for my document. And I want to see the macros. And now I'm looking for Happy Bullet. There it is. Okay. Alt-Control-H. Used to be highlight, now it's being stored in this document. There's the Happy Bullet. I had a feeling it might actually work this time. Click Assign, click Close, okay, and now I have some text, Alt-Control-H, and there's my Happy Bullet. So that's how you add a shortcut key after the fact in case you mess it up beginning. I don't think I messed it up. I think by giving it the same name, I had two macros with the same name in two different templates, that was causing trouble. Okay, so here's another item, and another item. And let's say I'm done. Press enter a couple of times and it stops bulleting things. Right. Now another kind of macro that you can record is called an auto macro. And I'm going to see if I can jump to my notes quickly here so that I can show you what I'm talking about. MSTC Word Intermediate Instructor's Notes Macros. Okay, these are called special macros in my notes. I'm going to scroll down to there. There they are. There are 6 macros with special names. 5. Auto new, auto execute, auto open, auto close, and auto exit. The only 2 I've ever used are auto new. This is automatically executed, must have this name with this capitalization, is automatically executed whenever you use a template to create a new document. Okay? I'm going to do that one in the homework assignment, but we're not going to do it here, but the name is what is important. There's also an auto open that automatically executes whenever you open a document, and that's the one I want to demonstrate here. Let's close this. Sure, save it. Okay, and now back to my recording support files, and I better have my macros sample. If I open it, notice where the cursor goes. It's at the beginning of the document. Well, in many documents, when you come back in the homework assignments I have you do a journal. Every time you come into your journal, you want to add more information to the end. Well, then you've got to do the magic keys to get down to the end, and I like to have it happen automatically. So what I want to happen is I want the cursor to jump down to the end of the document. Now remember, you can't, in a recording, use your mouse, so I can't just do what I just did and click out in the middle of nowhere and make it jump to the end. You can't do that. You need to know the shortcut key. So if you don't know it, go back to that website. I looked it up. It's Control End, and that jumps to the end of the document. So what I need is simply a recording that jumps to the end of the document. So I can record it. I just practiced it. Put my cursor at the top. And this text is not part of the macro. Put the cursor at the top, start a recording, and I'm going to call this auto open. That's the key name from my notes. I'm going to store it in my template or my document. So whenever I open this document, it's going to run this macro. And this is a simple macro, just Control End. You never assign shortcut keys. I suppose you could, but I never have assigned shortcut keys to your auto macros. That's it. So stop the recording. And now I'm going to copy this text and paste it a few times, have some really long text, save my document. And from now on, whenever I open this document, it's going to execute the auto open macro. There it is. It has to have the right name. So you have to look in my notes and make sure that you pick the right name. Auto open is usually for documents. Auto new is normally for templates. The other ones I've hardly ever used. So let's take a quick look at this. I'm going to edit it. And notice how short the macro is. It's just got some magic command that says the end key, go to the end of the story. Why it's the end of the story, not the end of the document, you'd have to ask Microsoft. This language that we're looking at here has been in existence since way back in the early, maybe 1997, maybe even earlier than that, versions of Microsoft Word. So it's a very simple macro. Notice it doesn't have any text, no pictures, no formatting, no nothing. It just jumps to the end of the document. When I close my document and open it, that macro auto open should execute automatically and my cursor should jump down below that list of items. Please. Okay, that worked. Jump down to the end, and now I can continue to add, not items to the list, but continue to add to my document. So just to demonstrate it one more time, copy them all again, and paste. Now my list is even longer. Save my document, and the next time I come back in, I'm going to say take me to the end, but that's going to be even further down. Close it. Word's having an issue in my virtual machine here. Okay, finally closed, and let's open it one more time and watch that macro do its work. And notice how it scrolled down, and if I select this window, my cursor is at the end of the document. Right, so it scrolled down automatically. You have a 50-page document. The command is Control-N. It jumps to the very end, so that's a very convenient macro. So just a real quick review. The easy way to record macros is you click the button, give it a name, designate where you want it stored. Click on OK. You can designate these if you wish. Click on OK, and then record. When you're done, hit stop. Done. 30-minute recording to cover all that, but at least the recording shows you some of the complicated things that you can do if you need to edit your macros or to assign them to keyboards afterwards, etc. But recording a macro itself is not too hard. But remember to practice first and then record.